As soon as videotape left the factory, it already started to break down. Information that is on the tapes is slowly dying, and if we don't preserve them, important historical content that's contained on them will be lost forever.
What is MePops?
What is MePops?
What is MePops? MePops stands for Moving Image Preservation of Puget Sound.
What MePops does for the general public of the Pacific Northwest is provide access to digitized content.
Our mission is to raise awareness about the magnetic media crisis, the alarm that the Association of Moving Image Archivists sounded to sort of bring awareness to the urgency of digitizing videotape.
Audiovisual Archive in Australia has put a deadline of 2025 to say, if you don't have your magnetic material digitized by this time, you're screwed. They're figuring out the actual date, and it's right around the corner.
Within 20 to 30 years of the time it's created, it's disintegrating.
The magnetic media crisis is sometimes called a gathering storm because the deterioration of the actual analog videotapes and then the increasing obsolescence and rarity of the players that play them back.
So video is a little bit different from film in that video went through all these different iterations, all these different formats for consumer purposes, for broadcast purposes, whereas film, there were consumer formats, 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, but the principle of film has stayed pretty consistent. And video requires all these different players.
A lot of the formats that we work with stopped being manufactured years ago. And so we have to make sure that we take good care of them and tune them up, clean them, because a lot of the parts and players are getting harder and harder to come by, and so are the people who actually work on them. They're a dying breed, if you will.
In some cases, people thought they were creating preservation copies by putting film onto videotape. In fact, that was not a great idea. Film is actually quite stable.
The thing about older media types like film and negatives is that they are stable. 30 years from now, you're going to be able to view them.
100-year-old nitrate film, in some cases, is still around and looks gorgeous. Whereas a video, for its manufacture, had a completely different purpose. It was more of a kind of democratizing format for shooting.
It was a lot cheaper than film, so not only were professionals using it, but also amateurs and just the average person was able to buy videotape and record.
There was plenty of access. You could watch your VHS tape of a film, but now that VHS tape needs a lot of help. We have to keep up. We can't just sort of settle back and say, okay, we're finished. Despite the fact that we're working with old materials that have their fixed content, the way we view that material, the way we store that material is going to just keep changing and evolving.
A lot of the time, videotape is capturing real people doing real things. That might sound personal and boring, but it really encompasses so much of Seattle and Seattle's history that it's valuable to the general public and great for them to be able to access it. The public is able to see files digitized at MePops on Internet Archive, where we create collections for each group so that they can, based on that institution, go in and view the content on their personal computer.
welcome. We're from the Tribes Media Project.
We are a part of a group of 12 students from Garfield High School in Seattle.
We met 2 hours every day after school for a semester to learn about media and raised with the help of professional media instructors from 911 Media Arts Center. We learned how to use state-of-the-art digital video equipment.
We had two main goals. One was to make our own video about race.
And the other was to document the Tribes Theater Project.
The Tribes Theater Project originated as a theater program created by J. Paul himself, in which a group of teenage actors created and performed their own original play on race relations.
Come on, you're white, she's black. You want a house full of zebra children?
She's above him. She's white, he's black. What, so you're racist?
Sometimes I wish I was different. Sometimes I wish I was black.
I don't even know what you are.
I'm Filipino. I'm from the Philippines, you know.
No.
South Pacific, Islands,
No.
chicken.
Yo, what? The only thing I know is black and white. You ain't either of those.
In the beginning, we were doing all these different movement pieces, all crazy and stuff. I really didn't know what I was doing.
Oh, yeah. Booties touching!
Okay, why are we dancing looking like idiots?
We just did like a lot of like dramatic exercises and like improv. And I guess it was just stuff to make us real comfortable around each other and, you know, take us out of our comfort zone.
My character started to feel like he had spent too much time consumed like with race.
Black is white. That's not me. Who am I? I'm black, and I'm also white. But me, Malik.
And like he's like bigger than that now. And that was like good for me. That like really helped me and got me thinking about that, you know. Yeah, I deal with race. I think it's a very important issue, but there's something bigger than that.
I think I've gained a lot from Tribes. Just like the experience was a really good thing, and I really like being up on stage.
I know now not to really judge someone just because of their ignorance. I think I've gained self-respect. I've gained respect for others, for the whole process.
I got to meet, you know, 12 wonderful people, J. Paul also. I feel really lucky to be part of it.
In addition to the documentary of the Tribes Theater Project, we turned our cameras on ourselves.
We each made a self-portrait video that helped us learn more about the people in our group and made us think about our own identity.
He cruzado la frontera de la fantasía. Desde el momento que la suela de mis zapatos hizo contacto con la tierra gabacha, yo me acuerdo que yo me volví parte de la fantasía, corriendo desesperadamente, espantado y emocionado, escuchando los perros atrás de mí. Me acuerdo de las estrellas que yo de chico veía. Antes las veía, pero ahora son parte de mi vida. Film by Jonathan Enriquez.
Towards the end of the semester, we used all of our newfound skills to produce our final projects. We broke into different groups and each was assigned a video mentor from the community.
My group, which consisted of 3 people, was assigned producer Damien Cooper, who helped us do a video about our background and show everybody how we are all a part of our community.
This is the house in which we live. These are the friends to whom we give.
Esta es la casa donde yo vivo y estas son las personas con las que yo vivo.
My name is Jonathan Enriquez. I am 19 years old as of June 1st, 1980. I have been influenced by many cultures over my life, living in 2 different countries and 5 different cities. My culture has not changed. I am still Mexican, and I am proud of it. My parents are Mexican, and so are my grandparents. My great-grandparents were from Spain, Portugal, and Mexico. As my ancestors fought one against each other, then fell in love with one another. They have made me see their mistakes and learn from them. I have also learned from my heroes, who are Pancho Villa, Miguel Zapata, and Jesus Christ, who they all died for their brothers, who they loved so much.
This is the house in which I live. These are the friends to whom I give. Most people consider their main support from their blood family. They place a lot of importance on race and ethnicity. I don't. My friends are my family. They are who I get most of my support from and who I spend most of my time with. They are also very different, not just their races, but backgrounds. They have such different personalities, which is why I'm drawn to them. We may not look like we would hang out, but that's all on the surface. It's inside that counts. Plus, just having one kind of friend would be like really boring. I mean, my lunchbox, for example, it's covered with all kinds of different stuff, but they're really interesting, pretty much the way my friends are. They're all different. That's why I consider myself basically just an all-American girl.
This is the house in which I live. These are the friends to whom I give. Hi, I'm Kathy, and this is me. Well, a small part of me, as much as I can fit into 2 minutes. Okay, well, I guess there's no better place to start than with my childhood. There's me as a baby. Oh, there's me in middle school. What can I say? I grew up fast. And here's me now. Yep, there I am. Oh, but it's not just me. See? There we all are. All 6 of us. I have a big family. Some here, but most in Detroit. We get together sometimes, and when we do, the visits always end in a spades game. It took me almost 14 years to sit at the spades table. Like I said, we're all from Detroit. It's a long story, but I guess I'll start with great-grandpa and grandma. You see, they're from the islands. They came over to America and became sharecroppers. Sharecroppers?
A sharecropper was a farmer who didn't necessarily own their own land, and at the end of the year, they would, I guess harvest the food.
So then they had Grandpa, who met Grandma, and moved to Detroit and had 13 kids, one of which was my mom. My mom grew up, graduated, and became a Black Panther. The Panthers were part of the Civil Rights Movement, a time when the black people stood up for what was right. There were a lot of leaders during this time. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Huey Newton. Huey Newton was the leader of the Black Panther Party. My mom even met him once.
Huey Newton. Huey Newton was a hero, really positive and really committed.
What was the movement all about?
Overall, the Civil Rights Movement was about empowerment.
So, there I am, or at least me for now.
My group's final project was focused on stereotypes based on color, attitude, and the way people present themselves. Our great mentor, T. Locke, helped us create this next video that we taped at KCTS Studio. I wonder what some people think of me when they see me.
based on my color, how I dress, how I present myself, or my attitude. Do you see me as an architect? I like to draw and design buildings. Does that make me a nerd? Do you see me as a martial artist? I like to practice Kung Fu, but does that make me like Bruce Lee? Do you see me as some kind of thief? I don't think so.
What do you see when you look at me? What assumptions do you make based on my race, my age, and the way I dress? I listen to punk music, but does that make me a punk, someone you wouldn't want to meet? I have a 4.0, but does that make me a nerd? I used to go to private school, but does that make me a prep obsessed with money? What do you see?
I am a strong, young, black, intelligent male, but people seem to see me as. I am more in touch with my kind and gentler side, and I am less aggressive. Does that mean I can't make it to the military? I am an athletic, young black male. Does that mean I have to be into sports? I was raised by my mother and am more in touch with my feminine side. Does that mean I want to be a woman?
We know who we are on the inside. Do you know who you are?
My group decided to do a narrative about how stereotypes still exist in our community and how looks can be deceiving. With the help of our producer, Mallory Graham, we taped a piece called The Last Straw.
I was walking down the street when I saw these kids follow me. They're always after me, and nothing but trouble. I've been mugged 3 times this year. It's not safe in my neighborhood anymore. I only went in the store to get away from it.
I'll work my butt off every day so that I can feed my children. But these little hood rats come in and they just want to steal from me. I just wish they would go back to the ghetto where they came from and just leave me alone. They came up into my store all loud and rambunctious.
Can I get some straws?
Then one of them tried to trick me into going back into the stockroom to get one of those straws. And when I came back, I saw her out the door. Candy bars were all gone, so I ran after them. Hey, come back here!
Man, why am I even here? Man, the little clerk, he was looking at me funny from the first time I stepped into that store. He was looking at me like I was gonna steal something. All I wanted was a slushie. I got my slushie and asked for a straw. This sucker didn't have the straw. What's the deal with that? What's going on? Can I get a straw?
Yo, Byron, yo, B, time to go.
I'm like, all right. The bus went by. I'm like, okay, I gotta leave the slushie. If I was gonna take something, I'd have took the slushie then.
During the final project, we learned how to work like a professional crew. We were responsible for producing, script writing, shooting, directing, and editing.
Overall, this project gave me a new outlook on career options.
This project has helped me to find another way to express myself through video.
This project opened my eyes to different stereotypes in the media.
We hope that all of our videos have inspired you to think differently about race. Thanks for joining us.
What I liked best about this project was that I got to learn all this stuff. I got to learn post-production, pre-production, and everything in between.
I really liked working with all the editing stuff because that's mad dough that they put into that, and I got to use it for free.
I liked putting tools in the hands of teenagers.
I feel like paper and everything just like it's a tool, but it's like a hand tool, and media is like a power tool.
The media uses certain like messages to manipulate people's like thinking.
Every time I try to watch a movie, bang, there's this shot in my head, and I'm like, that's a long shot, a medium shot, a close-up. I can't help it.
You all had so much time. There was just a level of engagement and learning the equipment and really getting your skills high. So the final product was, you know, some of the best work that I've ever seen.
And I wish I could do it longer. I just had a great time. I'll remember this for the rest of my life.
I give this project about a 15. I had a blast. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. If I could do it again, I would.
Just by way of introduction, I teach anthropology and American studies at a small liberal arts school in central Kentucky called Center College. My area is the anthropology of performance, and I'm particularly interested in how we as Homo sapiens sapiens, as humans, communicate experience through performance. My intellectual mentor, though I'd never met him, the late, great Victor Turner, said that performance is the pan-human way of communicating experience. He uses experience in the way that the German philosopher Wilhelm Dilthey used experience as that which has been lived through. And always the problem with human communication is, how do I know what's up here in my head gets to your head, and we have the same understanding of that? Well, humans all over the globe use performance to solve that problem with the feedback procedure. And so I particularly like doing this type of programs because for me, it draws the relationship between performance and pedagogy. Humanities program. The humanities, as you know, are those disciplines that we traditionally consider to be history, literature, philosophy, jurisprudence or law, religious studies, as well as my home discipline of anthropology, are principally concerned with asking the question, what does it mean to be human? And ultimately, that's the real question we are addressing in all of these programs. What is it that we share in common? And the one thing we share of common, of course, is the gift of language, this symbolic communication. So it's also a celebration of spoken language, and of course, with libraries and the Center for the Book, it's a celebration of written languages. I always say that if you could hold a conversation with a dead person, who would it be, and what would you talk to that person about? And those of us who do Chautauqua, which I define as the cultural performance of scholarship, I think this is the second best thing to that alternative since the person is going away. So I'm going to present a text, The Life and Thought of Malcolm X. And of course, I would like for you to relate to that text in the same way that one would relate to any text, and that is critically. As George Frein, my mentor, says, form little question marks in the margins of your mind. And please pose interesting questions to Malcolm. Let us assume that it's not 2001. We are not in Seattle, Washington. It's late 1964. We're in New York City. The building is packed. People all along the sides and up the walls and the rafters. And one more leap, we are all black people. Two young men come down, they take their positions. These are Malcolm's personal bodyguard. Malcolm comes out and he starts to relate his story. And he's going to take you through all four phases of Malcolm Little, Detroit Red, Malcolm X, and El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. So we're going to see the transition of a human spirit. He comes out all smiles, and Malcolm had this wonderful sense of humor. I'll try to give some of his humor to you, and he walks out and he addresses the audience with his typical Muslim greeting of Assalamu alaikum. And during the few moments that we have left, we would just like to have an off-the-cuff chat between you and me, us. We'd like to talk right down to earth in a language that everyone here can easily understand. We all agree, all of the speakers tonight have agreed that America has a very serious problem. And not only does America have a very serious problem, but our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is us. We are her problem. And the only reason that she has a problem is that she doesn't want us here. And every time you look at yourself, be you black, brown, red, or yellow, a so-called Negro, you represent a person who poses such a serious problem for America simply because you're not wanted. And once we began to face this as a fact, we can begin to chart a course that will make us appear intelligent instead of unintelligent. Now, what you and I must learn to do is to forget our differences. When we come together, we don't come together as Baptists or Methodists. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist. You don't catch hell because you're a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you are a Baptist or a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Mason or a Democrat or a Republican or an elk. And you sure don't catch hell because you're an American, because if you were an American, you wouldn't catch no hell. You catch hell because you're a black man. You catch hell, all of us catch hell for the same reason. So we are all black people. So-called Negroes, second-class citizens, ex-slaves. You're nothing but an ex-slave. You don't like to be told that, but what else are you? You're an ex-slave. You didn't come here on the Mayflower. You were brought here in chains like a horse or a cow or a chicken. And you were brought here by the people who came over on the Mayflower. You were brought here by the Pilgrims or so-called founding fathers. They were the ones who brought you here and shot you full of Novocaine. Like when you go to the dentist and he's going to take your tooth, what you do, you start fighting when he starts pulling. So to keep you from fighting back, they squirt some stuff in your jaw they call Novocaine to make you think they aren't doing anything to you. And because you got all of this Novocaine shot up in you, you sit there and you suffer peacefully. Blood running all down your jaw, but you don't know what's happening, see, because somebody has taught you to suffer peacefully. Don't stop suffering. Just suffer peacefully. As Reverend Cleve pointed out, let your blood flow in the streets. This is a shame. And he's a Christian preacher. If it's a shame to him, you know what it is to me. There's nothing in our religious book, the Quran, as you call it, Koran, that teaches us to suffer peacefully. Our religion teaches us to be peaceful, obey the law, respect every man. But if someone puts his hands on you, send them to the cemetery. And that's a good religion. In fact, that's that old time religion. That's the one that Ma and Pa used to talk about. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And a head for a head and a life for a life, and nobody resents that type of religion being taught except a wolf who intends to make you his next meal. And these old religious Uncle Toms running around here talking about give up your life for freedom. No, brothers and sisters, you preserve your life because it's the best thing you've got. And if you must give it up, I say if you must give it up, let it be even Stephen. Anyway, I live each day now as if I'm already dead. I say it like that because from the things that I know, I do not expect to live long enough to read my autobiography in its finished form. But when I am dead, I would just like for you to wait and see if I'm not right in what I say. That the white man in his press will make use of me dead just as he has made use of me while alive, as a convenient symbol of hatred. And this will help him to escape facing the truth that all I have been doing is holding up a mirror to reflect, to show the history of unspeakable crimes that his race has committed against my race. And yes, I have cherished my demagogue role. And I know that societies have often to kill those who have helped to change those societies. But if I can die having brought any truth, having spread any ray of light that will help to destroy the racist cancer that is malignant in the body of America, then all the credit is due to Allah. Only the mistakes have been mine. And with those words, several weeks ago, I closed out the galley proofs to Mr. Alex Haley for what will be my autobiography.
I was looking up on the web on some different things about storytelling, and there wasn't much, actually, on African-American storytelling, but I got a little something I'm going to read to you. This was off of thefamily.com. It's in cooperation with Disney. Prior to the age of electronic babysitters, folks had long hours under the stars around the hearth to weave tales that taught and entertained. Some of you remember when you were in school, you went to camp, and how you'd be around the campfire and they would tell stories, most of the time scary stories. I remember having scary stories taught to me. But that's how our history was brought down from generation to generation was through stories, because we weren't able to speak our own language. We weren't able to communicate with each other. So we communicated through stories. When I was looking at this, there wasn't, back then, weren't able to write. They weren't able to write. They weren't able to read and write. They weren't able to be taught how to read and write. And so they taught each other through stories. They taught their morals. They taught about our history. They taught everything through storytelling, and that's how storytelling has come to be what it is today. There was a time where it kind of fell by the wayside. Families weren't really doing that when the pen came into to United States and everything like that. We weren't able to tell stories. Stories weren't told like they've been told today. I'm very glad to have Joyce with us on today. I remember seeing her in Blacks in Government last year at the Westin Hotel, and it was wonderful. I had never experienced it on that level before, and she's wonderful. She's wonderful. I'm going to read a little bit about her and then have her come up and start talking to us. Joyce is the academic advisor at the Evergreen State College, and she's a graduate of the Evergreen State College with a bachelor's degree in literature and education. She spent 14 years as a trainer in multicultural and equal opportunity issues while enlisted in the U.S. military as a senior intelligence analyst. She has many credits and accomplishments, including a lecturer at local colleges, improvisational and playback theater, the Heart Sparkle Players, as a professional storyteller. She has volunteered at several organizations in the Olympia community and continues to volunteer at Safe Place, an anti-oppression awareness trainer. And I would like for you to help me to welcome Joyce.
How y'all doing? Good, good. Storytelling. Well, one of the things that I talk about in my storytelling, which I can't really truly get away from, is my mama. I talk about her a lot, because she was such a big part of my life, whether I wanted her to be or not. Emma was 50 years old when she adopted me, and her husband was 70, and I was 4 days old. And we went to Jupiter, Florida. Y'all know where Jupiter, Florida is? Anybody? West Palm Beach? Okay. Burt Reynolds lives in Jupiter, Florida. That's the only thing I can tell y'all about it. And there's a sign that says, "Welcome to Jupiter." And the back of the sign, it says, "You're now leaving Jupiter." That's how small it is. But Jupiter, at one time, was a very segregated town. And meaning that we all blacks lived on one side and all the whites lived on the other side. And so, but I didn't know anything about that. See, I was home. That was home to me. I was safe there. I didn't know anything about the outside world and what was going on. My whole world was Deacon Hayes, Miss Ware and Reverend Ware, Miss Flossie Mae, Miss Pluky. That's Pluky. Miss Pluky. Miss Jew Baby. Don't ask. Miss Gertrude. That was my world. And they were Brother Willis and Sister Willis and Miss Katie Mae. Mr. Jug, he fought Miss Katie Mae all the time, that type of stuff. That was my world. And I could be out running through the streets of Jupiter. There wasn't no streets, y'all. Don't let me lie. It was shell rock roads. I looked at my mother, who was 50 years older than me, who once a month would go shopping in West Palm Beach. Once a month. And once a year, I would get a pair of shoes. At Christmas time, I get another pair. But once a year, I got a pair of shoes. You couldn't try on shoes in West Palm Beach when in the 50s. Mama would take my foot on a piece of newspaper, draw my foot out, and then cut it out. And then she'll fold it and put it in a pocketbook, and we would go down to buy me some new shoes. And when she get into the shoe store downtown West Palm Beach, she would pull this paper out and stick it in the shoe to see if it fit. And she swore to God my foot grew before she could get out the damn store with the shoe. Because as soon as she would put the shoe on my foot, it was tight, little. And I had to wear that shoe for another 6 months, tight and little, because she couldn't take it back. We would also do our monthly trip to Woolworth, where they had hot dogs and small sodas and bonbon candies. The ones that were pink and chocolate and yellow with coconut inside of it and cream, and where mama would only give me one and hide the rest in her bedroom where I would find them and eat them the rest of the month. She would go into Woolworth. She would pass all the tables and pass all the long counter, and she would go over to the popcorn machine and stand until the man behind the counter would wait on her. And it was such a long time. For me, such a long time. You see, he would wait on everybody in the store. And then he would come to my mama. What you want, Annie? And then I would see my mother, the mother of the church, the woman who raised children's. You know, the woman that's in the neighborhood that keeps everybody's children. This woman who young women would go to and say, Miss Emma, what can I do? My man is cheating on me. Leave him. Miss Emma, my man hit me. Girl, you better pick up something and knock the hell. Well, I can't say it, y'all. But you know, knock him out. This woman stood there and looked at this man. And then she did something I didn't understand, not at my age, where she would lower her eyes and pull in her lips and say, hot dog, sir, and a small soda. No, I didn't know what was going on. For you see, my mama would take that hot dog and that small soda, and she would pass the counter and all those tables and take me outside of Woolworth on the sidewalk where I would squat down and eat my hot dog and drink my soda while she stood there. As soon as I got through eating that good old hot dog and drinking that soda, I had to go to the bathroom. And she would say, Lord, have mercy, girl. Why I give you that soda? Lord, don't you know I got to, come on. But see, the bathroom, the colored bathroom, the one that she could use in safety maybe, was up at Sears and Roebuck, which was 2 blocks away and across the track. And we had to walk. And I danced the whole way up there. But see, in Sears and Roebuck, the man knew my mama. Hello, Miss Emma. And she said, I just come to let my baby use the bathroom. Well, just let her go on in. But see, mama bought all her furniture from Sears and Roebucks and her washing machines and stuff, you know, so they knew her. But if she had to go shopping again, we still had to go 2 blocks back downtown to finish the shopping. Those was the times. But I didn't understand what this woman was doing with this one child, this child that was not her child. Emma, 250 pounds, wet, 5'2", just as wide as she was tall. Long hair, said she was Indian. Everybody had Indian in them back in my town. We ain't figured out which tribe to this day, but you know, everybody was Indian. I wrote a praise song to my mother, this woman who, at 50 years old, decided to adopt a child. This woman who meant so much to me, this woman who made me who I am today, Emma. And I share it with you. I remember Emma. I remember Emma, mother of my soul, I daughter not of her womb. Emma born 1899, married 1916 to Reuben 20 years her senior. They became one. October the 31st, 1951, Emma was 52, Reuben was 72, and I, 4 days old. We became one. I remember Emma sitting on the front porch, dipping snuff. Pointing out into the neighborhood, teaching me the facts of life. Look at there. There go Miss Katie Mae. She ain't got much sense at all, staying there with that man whilst he beats a Nelly to death. You don't let no man whoop on you, you hear me? I, feet not even touching the floor, sitting in my rocking chair, imitating my mother as I learn the facts of life. I remember Emma sitting on a stump in the backyard in her garden with a hoe in her aging hands. I was 5. She was crying. I never had to do this when Reuben was alive. I never had to do this. That's okay, I said to my mama, as I pulled the oversized burden from my hand and I began to hold the long row of crops. Emma and I and Emma. I remember Emma. I remember her wisdom etched deeply in her face. I remember her humor, and I remember her sayings. Chip don't fall far from the log. Now he can't find his way out of a wet paper sack. Come here, you black alpaca. I remember her love. I coming home from school one day. Mama, you ain't never said you love me. I remember her look. Girl, where do you get those highfalutin notions from? Go on in there and fix you something to eat. I smothered you some chicken wings and cut you a nice piece of that sweet bread I baked. She never said the words, I love you. I remember her frustration of not being able to leap those 50 years to me, and I, in my youth, not understanding. I remember her anger, throwing a wet dish rag at the door frame, missing it and hitting her squarely in her back. I remember her look, and Lord have mercy, I still remember that strap. I remember her prayers. Father in heaven, let me live long enough where I can see this child up to the point where she can raise herself. And God must have listened, like everybody else did when Miss Emma spoke. July the 11th, 1982, hospital room, tubes, and Mama having lost her battle with gravity on her left side. Mama, this is Joyce. Mama, do you know me? It's Joyce. Mama. Of course I know you. Clean enough shit off your ass. Mama, get out of that bed. You ain't sick. Get up. No, baby. I don't think I can make it this time. I haven't cried too much for Mom, even at the funeral, when Cousin Joe Man stood up and talked to the congregation. If there be's a God, I thought the pastor was going to fall out the pulpit. If there be's a God, I know Cousin Emma is up there making sweet potato pies for him. Emma. Now, there were some things about Emma I chose not to take with me. But she left a legacy. She left a legacy of family. I don't care who you got in this world. You got family. She left a legacy of how I'm to live my life. I don't care if you got a milk crate. You keep it clean. Get in here and clean this room up. You can go anywhere. Go. Just remember, you can always come home. When you out there in them streets, you represent me. My name is out there in them streets. You act accordingly. You hold your head up high. You act like a woman out there. Get an education. People can't go nowhere without book learning. I learned my timetables. I only went to the 3rd grade. But I want better for you. You get that book learning. And you remember something. You got to be better than anybody out there. And she left me a legacy of spirituality in the church every Sunday. 4 to 5 hours at a time. And then you went home and ate and came back again. Every Sunday. But she left me that spirituality. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. While I'm on my lonesome journey, I want Jesus to walk with me. I want Jesus to walk with me. Emma and I and Emma. I remember Emma. Thank you.
Doris Chase Concepts is concerned with adding a new visual dimension to words, emotion, and dramatic theater. Mask is the journey of a black woman looking inside herself. It is a woman's attempt to unravel her history and discover her true source of strength.
My hand is moving in a slow procession across my face. It glides like an ice skater with a sure knowledge of the ice. My hand is moving in a slow procession. It is creating a landscape on this surface. A surface that I do not recognize. My new look. I'll wear my gray flannel man-tailored suit, first seen in Vogue, sensible low-heeled shoes, my hair styled, and the Wall Street Journal tucked under my arm like a battle lance. I'll charge into that concrete canyon. I'll walk down Wall Street in my mufti, my face veiled by their illusions.
Was I born a twin? Did my sister die at birth? Was she buried in a secret grave beside the Nile? In her voyage through the birth canal, did she take the umbilical cord in her baby fist and strangle herself rather than live in this exile?
Mama, dressed in a mink chubby with a big corsage, smiling in a nightclub on VJ Day. Mama called last night. Good luck tomorrow, honey. You'll be the first color director they have there. Mama under siege from the day she was born. Just keep working hard. Dad on the basement extension next to his pool table. Work hard and be on time. No CP time. CP time is Billie Holiday singing behind the beat. Well, she's dead, you know, Dad would sing. If I take this off, my skin may come off too, like the flesh of the Hiroshima victims when they were touched. In my office, I can maneuver through the minefields of committee meetings, acres of computer readouts like the lace on the wedding dress of some monster bride, the dead brown eyes in Key Punch. They say the working world will soon be silent. The robots are coming, and I am ready. I've been preparing all my life. Today, I will be promoted to director. The first, like Mama said, there'll be a big parade down the street back home. They'll tear to shreds their first-class tickets to Jamaica. All the women will don their best wigs. Wigs named Lisa and Nancy and Debbie. I will be acclaimed an authentic credit to the race. The race against myself. The race they all lost. I am all of 15 and a half, posing in the bathroom mirror, holding my official fan club portrait of Sandra D. Sandra is in half profile, her face turned saucily to whatever man owned a surfboard and a Mustang convertible. Her eyes flash scenes from the beach at Malibu. It never rains in California, the Musketeers sing. I sit in the mirror and practice Sandra's smile, Sandra's tilt of the head. Dad buys me a book about Harriet Tubman, but Sandra D is the heroine of my secret self. If I take this off, my skin may come off too, like the flesh of the Hiroshima victims when they were touched. Church down south. It was like the blast at Los Alamos. The blind could see the light. And I thought only old people died. Glad I left the South, Dad said while building a cabinet for his bowling trophies. Daddy, why do you work so much? Why aren't you ever here when I need you? 'Cause I want you to go to good school and have nice clothes and lunch money. No dried up bologna sandwiches and greasy bags for you. Then, Daddy, are overcooked hamburgers made by somebody else's mother the reason you left Mississippi on the midnight train and joined Patton's army? You were a hard-eyed old man at 6 years old. One cold night during the McCarthy era, you stood up to a mob of men with Slavic names. Did you stand up to their northern industrial threats for a home in the suburbs, for children who took pride in not knowing the words to gospel songs? Mama, my skirt is bloody. Don't sneak me in the bathroom, Mama. Mama, you're talking too fast. Your words are too casual. No, Mama, I won't tell Daddy. Yes, Mama. I understand. I can't play with boys anymore. And I'll remember to keep my skirt down. Sister Calexica, I won't give occasion for sin. No, sister, I don't want a black soul. A black soul will send you to hell. Black is bad. Sister's pale blue eyes are like the oceans on the moon. Her hair, golden brown, inching from her wimple. I drew a self-portrait on white paper, and I did not color it in. Crackling and sizzling. And the brightly colored ribbons and the pain. Sitting in my bedroom dressed in a slip, thinking cool thoughts so that my hair wouldn't go back. And staring at my bedroom wall, talking to Sandra D, knowing that she'll understand. Before he went off to school, his name was David. Before he went off to school, he wore more Brooke Brothers shirts than anybody on the block. Pinks blew the whitest whites. He wore Jade East, and his pants were always creased. We used to sit on the front porch and talk about our fondest dreams, to own LTDs. But when he came back, his name was Hassan. And he wouldn't eat my dad's special barbecue anymore. And he wore dashikis. And he spoke either very softly and slowly or very loudly with his arms waving in the air like the conductor of some ghost chorus. Now David Hassan had no dreams to share with me. Not until I let my hair grow into its natural state and walk 2 steps behind him. Our street, once so stately and serene, with the quiet of those afraid to be thought low life, our street was quickly being filled with poets who lectured at the drop of a hat. One rainy night, while my parents were at a dinner party, Sandra D was torn into shreds. One rainy night, while my parents were at a dinner party, my hymen was torn into shreds by David Hassan, who said he was a warrior. Now, I was very correct in front of white people. I lived in a house where the women were 4 to a man, where I learned to prepare millet traditionally and run a mimeograph machine. I shared David Hassan in tribal compliance until the hot afternoon he took me to a surgeon. under the L tracks. A friend of the family. He had skin the color of cold coffee. And he touched me far too long. A man who traveled to the land of his ancestors on safari, who drank schnapps at treetops with the Prince of Wales. A man who brought back dead animals and displayed their heads at cocktail parties. He told me not to tell David Hassan that it was a boy. He slipped me his telephone number for a drink sometime.
If you visit our nation's capital, you will see many monuments to the great men of our history. I went especially to see one, the Frederick Douglass Memorial Home. It stands on Cedar Hill just outside the city of Washington in Anacostia. It is a shrine to a writer, orator, statesman. It was like entering the familiar door of a well-loved neighbor. I almost expected to find him standing there, coaxing his wife to bake his favorite bread. Though he had been dead more than a half-century, the house was alive with memories. The famous Civil War regiment he helped to organize. Abraham Lincoln's favorite walking stick, a gift to his friend, Frederick Douglass. A stone from John Brown's fort at Harper's Ferry. Wendell Phillips, the great abolitionist. Looking down upon them all was Othello the Moor, symbol of man's fight for human dignity.
No more options lost for me, many thousand gone. No more kind of song for me, no more, no more. No more kind of song for me, many thousand gone. No more drivers left for me.
Somehow, being in Frederick Douglass's home, walking through his room, studying his photographs, touching his things, I felt as though I were discovering Frederick Douglass for the first time.
The reader must not expect me to say much of my family. My only recollections of my own mother are a few hasty visits made in the night. after the daily tasks were over. Of my father, I know nothing. Slavery had no recognition of fathers, as none of families. I lived with my grandmother, who was in charge of the children. Because of her kindness and love, it was some time before I knew I was a slave. It was not long, however, before I learned that grandmother herself and all the children belonged to old master. He allowed little children to live with grandmother for only a limited time. As soon as they were big enough, they were taken away to work for old master on the plantation. I could not have been more than 7 or 8 years old when an incident occurred that made a deep impression on my mind. One of the men slaves and my Aunt Jenny ran away. The slaves whispered that Uncle Noah and Aunt Jenny had gone to the free states and were free. My mistress had never been a slaveholder. Often she read the Bible aloud. This aroused in me the desire to learn. But when my master found her teaching me to read, he was quick to tell her, if he learns to read the Bible, it will forever unfit him to be a slave. He should know nothing but the will of his master and learn to obey it.
But it was too late. The alphabet had opened a new world for little Frederick. He had learned to read. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. At 21, with the help of a free colored man, he disguised himself as a sailor and escaped to the north. There he saw a white man, William Lloyd Garrison, fighting for the freedom of the colored people. Douglas joined hands with the Garrison abolitionists. His ability to speak and the power of his words made many doubt that he had ever been a slave. Douglas risked his life to prove his facts. He named his master, the place of his bondage, and laid bare the crimes of slavery. His friends rushed him off to England. Abroad, he told the world what it meant to be a colored man in America. Moved by his story, the people of England raised the money to buy his freedom. They gave him a scroll of friendship and a purse to move his family to England. But Douglas thought not of himself, but of his enslaved people. He came home to be on the scene of battle. He founded a newspaper.
Our Constitution says, we the people, not we the white people, not even we the citizens, not we the high, nor we the low, but we the people.
Therefore, let a great party of freedom be organized, on whose broad banners let it be inscribed, all rights to all men.
His paper became the voice of his people. Its message reached colored and white peoples throughout the nation. Douglas was a man of action as well as words. He fought with his friend Susan B. Anthony for equal rights for women. He worked with Theodore Weld, organizer for the American Anti-Slavery Society. He served with Harriet Tubman, leader of the Underground Railroad.
Oh, glory, hallelujah.
Hundreds of runaway slaves passed through the Douglas station at Rochester, New York. Anna Douglas would nurse and feed them. Frederick Douglass would take them to the Canadian border. Douglass's co-worker, John Brown, was captured at Harper's Ferry and was sentenced to be hanged.
John Brown's body lies alone in the grave, his soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Awaiting his execution, he wrote a note to Frederick Douglass. Dear Douglass, I know I have not failed because you live. Go forth and someday unfurl my flag in the land of the free. Farewell. Douglass loved John Brown and honored his sacrifice. He redoubled his efforts to build an anti-slavery party.
Out of the wilderness, out of the wilderness, old Abe Lincoln came. Out of the wilderness, his troops is marching on. Old Abe Lincoln came.
To Lincoln, a compromise was possible. In his first inaugural address,
I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists.
It was useless for Mr. Lincoln to begin his inaugural address by prostrating himself before the foul and withering curse of slavery. The American people have placed the government in the hands of Abraham Lincoln, and his instructions are in the Constitution.
to the slaveholders, it was expand slavery at any cost. They attacked at Fort Sumter. Douglass urged the nation to emancipate and arm the slaves, but only white men were accepted. Defeat at Bull Run.
Emancipate and arm the slaves.
Defeat at Ball's Bluff.
Emancipate and arm the slaves.
Defeat at Big Bethel.
Emancipate and arm the slaves.
2 years of defeat. Slowly, the nation saw that the manpower of 4 million slaves was feeding and supplying the rebel armies. The slaves were freed. With Douglass's help in recruiting, 200,000 emancipated slaves enlisted in the Union Army. "75 were commissioned on the field of battle. They fought at Fort Wagner, Dobie River, Petersburg, Fort Pillow, Fort Hudson. Their strength gave new courage to the Union. It made the abolition of slavery a war aim. In Lincoln's second inaugural address,
Until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with a lash shall be paid by another drawn with a sword.
Same old sunshine, same old sunshine, same old sunshine.
that night at the inaugural reception, Douglass was among the invited guests.
I saw you in the crowd today listening to my speech. What did you think of it?
Mr. Lincoln, it was a sacred effort.
Douglass saw the fulfillment of his struggle in the laws that abolished slavery, recognized our citizenship, and guaranteed our right to vote. But he found the spirit of slavery was still alive. 42nd Congress House of Representatives report, February 19, 1872. The Ku Klux Conspiracy. Conditions of affairs in the southern states. Douglass saw that the battle was far from won. For 25 more years, he carried on the fight.
I shall demand for the Negro the most perfect civil and political equality, and that he shall enjoy all the rights, privileges, and immunities enjoyed by any other members of the body politic.
As I was leaving the Douglass home, I promised myself that I would help keep alive the heritage that Frederick Douglass left us.